call to order the August 8th meeting of the Village of Wesley Chapel Council. If you'll rise and join me for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We did receive an update before the invocation this weekend that Mayor Jan former Mayor Jan is in her last stage of her cancer battle. So we will keep her family in our thoughts and prayers, and we'll try to, with her family's permission, share information about services.
Please remain standing. We're honored to have Reverend Kay Morrison Sanders, who most likely is Reverend Sanders is the newest pastor in the village of Wesley Chapel. She was appointed to serve at Wesley Chapel Methodist back in July. We're honored to have you.
I'm honored to be here. I am Pastor Kay Sanders. I'm the new pastor at Wesley Chapel, little church down the road on the corner. I'm delighted to be here. I've been there, serving there since the 1st of July. And before we pray, I do want to say a special prayer, you say, for Mayor Jan and her family. Father God, in the name of Jesus, we thank you for this opportunity to lift up her family and her, Lord, as she's transitioning to you. Father God, we know to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. We call peace to her family and to her cohorts and her co-workers here. In Jesus' name, amen. God, our Father of heaven and earth, as we gather here in your glorious presence, we invite the Holy Spirit to make us worthy to stand before you. Search our hearts, O God, try us, and lead us now in your mercy. Grant us your grace and guidance for a productive meeting. In your Son's name, amen.
Thank you, Rick.
Now it is public comment time. I'm assuming. Anybody want to do public comment? All right. Additions, deletions, and adoption of agenda. Does anyone have anything? I'll take a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Motion to approve.
And a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Okay. And then I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second, but I've got one question.
Sure.
The resolution to exempt on-call engineering contract, do we have backed up on
Yeah.
that? Is that a 485 contract?
No, it's for Labella. I was hoping somebody would notice it. It's just that we do use Labella ongoing and for our general services, which is mainly development.
Okay.
And if we didn't do this resolution, we'd have to go out on bid. We'd have to do an RFQ for them every year.
Okay.
We've done this before.
Every year. George says we should do it every year.
All right, so any further discussion?
Did we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay.
All in favor? All right. We all get a bonus if we get out of here at 9 o'clock tonight. So now, Vaughn will give a planning board report. And I thought Mike was going to try to be here, but...
We had a very good planning board meeting last month. Welcomed 2 new members to the planning board, both very good, active, interested participants. And the meeting focused primarily on the comprehensive plan, and we spent some time discussing it. And the planning board voted unanimously to recommend its adoption to you. Basically, the planning board meeting in a nutshell.
Hi, John.
Any major discussion about that from the planning board?
There was lots of discussion, not any points of controversy, just the benefit of having a plan that covered a greater area than the village, provided some better clarity to where we expect there to be growth, some clarity, or reinforcing the desire to keep commercial development to this area around us here.
Yes.
But really, no points of controversy about it. Just mostly focused on it's good to have an updated plan that reflects the current desires of the community.
And some of them ask the same questions we had about those fancy terms. So,
Will this have a public hearing? Is it acceptable for me to ask
No.
if the vote was unanimous?
It was.
On approval, okay.
and even the two in the audience, I think, were.
And the two alternate members were both in favor as well, even though they did not get to officially vote.
Anything else, sir?
Pretty quiet month.
No update, no response from your letter
No.
to the property owner?
No, yeah, I did send it to George.
Okay.
So, he and I didn't talk.
Okay.
He hasn't sent one, has he yet?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, not to my knowledge.
So Mike Henry has generously agreed to serve as planning board chair. He was the
Vice Chair.
vice chair last year. So it's my understanding the council will appoint him, and then next meeting they decide on their own vice chair. So do I have a motion to appoint Mike?
Make a motion?
Second. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay. I'll second.
2 more planning board members.
That's right.
Any further discussion? All in favor? I guess we do need to, for a while John was coming to meetings, but Vaughn gives a really good report. Are we asking Mike to come to the meetings, or is the planning board report from Vaughn's sufficient?
I like it when John came and gave reports to that. I mean, not anything against Vaughn, just to give a different perspective.
Have you spoken to him about it? Does he feel
He
like
was going to try to come tonight, but
we can be in law enforcement and see where it might be a last minute issue sometimes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it would be great to be able to have, ask him questions and stuff. But again, Vaughn does a great job. So just, I guess he would, I mean, if he thinks that he would like to do that, I hate to mandate him coming.
Personally, I don't know that we need to see him every month. I would like to have an update from him maybe every quarter, or unless there's something that planning board is more back and forth on, he needs some input from.
So minimum quarterly?
I would think so. Yeah. I mean, I would like to see all of our committee heads,
No.
at least once a quarter.
No.
I think Vaughn's done a great job. I appreciate him covering off on that too, so that we can do that. I thought I had heard at one time that the chair was paid more in order to cover his attendance at the monthly council meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're saying we're going to continue paying him for attendance, but not expecting attendance.
Well, no, I have not been paying the chair if they don't come to the council meetings, that extra amount
Okay.
for.
Board members don't get paid if they don't attend. Okay, I didn't know what it was to be.
But I mean, they all get paid $100, so he doesn't get $125 unless he comes to see you guys.
Thank you. So I will follow up with Mike and tell him we've appointed him and we would like him to come quarterly if there are important issues.
And what's the current makeup of the planning board as far as alternates? We have 1 or 2 in the wings?
There's 2 alternates.
2 alternates. Okay.
Well, 3.
3.
Okay.
One was not. So,
We have a full board.
All right.
So,
Yeah.
just so we know who were the appointed members at this point, I think I know. And who are their alternates?
Mike,
Michael Kennery,
Sherry Killian,
Adam,
yes, Adam Peters,
Carl,
Carl Schneeberger,
Schneeberger, and Vince.
and Vince. Yep. And then Bill Ruley and Dr. Sandra Burke. And who am I missing? And Richard Stevens, that's right.
Stevenson.
I see them so infrequently. It's like introducing myself to them each month.
And that, while we're on the planner report, Richard, William Rowley sent an email, and Simpson, updating from the Cuthbertson Road meeting. I saw an email very clearly where it said Newtown and Cuthbertson Road was being studied for a roundabout. And then Lee from DOT said they're not analyzing it for a roundabout. So I'm not sure where that they are gonna assess the backup on Cuthbertson Road for the car queue lines. They'll reassess the speed limit to see if it needs to drop to 35, although in the past it has been maintained at 45. They were confused about the road reclassification process, but I think
Who was
finally figured out it
confused?
was the CR.
NCDOT was confused.
Yeah.
There's a person in Raleigh that goes to. The local folks probably would have
Okay.
nothing to do with it.
And then they said, that the Cuthbertson Road probably could be widened across the dedicated right of way. And Ann Simpson replied back that at the Union County Board of Commissioners meeting, the last one, Commissioner Helms made a motion and it passed unanimously to direct county staff to work with Waxhaw to find solutions to build out the library site sidewalk sooner using ARP funds. And Waxhaw is going to do the same at their meeting on Tuesday. And they've already set up a meeting to discuss it. And they're going to start the roadway reclassification process.
Who's going to start?
Apparently Waxhaw is. It says
Okay.
Waxhaw staff is reviewing the roadway reclassification information that Wesley Chapel forwarded. They gave us credit. And once we are further along in the process, having Wesley Chapel, Waxhaw, and Union County approve a resolution in support.
Yeah. So what we would do is we would take our resolutions essentially. And there's a list of some things that we need to provide CRTPO with. There's some background reasoning that they'll want to see, and then we just we'll put it on the CRTPO agenda. We can probably put it on the consent agenda for one of the upcoming meetings, and it will then go to the person in Raleigh that handles that. And I don't know how long it will take after that. I don't know how many of these they get. They probably don't get very many, but yeah, I'll talk to Jeff and see where they are.
I just forwarded you the email. He was on it too. So.
Right.
But it's nice to see the ball rolling on that still. Anybody have anything else for the planner? That brings us to Parks and Rec. Come on up, Brad. So we do not yet have, Cheryl and I did have a phone call with LJB last week, but they needed a little more time to gather some of their figures, and we'll share it as soon as we have it.
I think finance is next.
Oh, shoot. I skipped Cheryl, I'm sorry.
Okay, so we have the July financial reports, and it's the first month of the fiscal year, so you are missing one column because you just have July, and that is year to date. We did receive the second tranche of the ARP funds, so we now have $557,625 in the bank. That's the ARP money. Now, I did see an email last week, like Wednesday or Thursday, a very quick email from Kara Malanzi that the Department of Treasury is changing the rules again. But supposedly it'll change them to make it easier for us. And she said she would get back to us this week, so we'll see.
Does that change what we have done or what we are planning to do in the future?
Who knows?
Yeah, good.
Yes.
Yes.
And no. Yes and no. So anyway, we'll have a little more fun with that. So being the first month of the year, we didn't get in a whole lot of money. Zoning permits. Let's see here. We did pay for the first quarter of deputy services. I'm also trying to investigate. I know that Indian Trail is using most of their money for deputies, and I did get a contract addendum or whatever from Indian Trail, and I sent it to George and Sarah. So I don't know. I'm trying, if we can do that angle, I'd love to do it, but, I am working on it, but haven't gotten.
To offset the sheriff's deputy's payroll? Awesome.
Yeah, that would be nice. So they're doing it, but just because they're doing it doesn't mean they're doing it correctly. So I'm making sure that it is right before we.
Maybe their new changes will make that easier.
Supposedly it'll make it easier, but yeah, we'll see. So we've had money sitting in fund balance, $313 and I think it's 40 cents. That was actually collected at an old National Night Out event years ago. Sometimes businesses would donate money, and I think they had like a raffle a couple of times. So anyway, I thought this is the time to appropriate that money for National Night Out. It's not a whole lot, but it'll pay for a little bit, and we might as well use it. It's sitting there. So I do need a motion to do that.
We have a motion.
So motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous.
The only other thing I will mention is that there was 2 changes since we adopted the budget, and really I've been so busy with other things I didn't worry about it yet, but I'll need to appropriate a little bit more money for the deputies because the county commissioners changed the rate they charge to the towns. I think they did that in June. On June 13th they did that.
Was it a percentage increase or was it a flat increase?
It's a increase in fuel costs, $360. And then, of course, we also have the water bills that went up at last minute. The county's full of surprises this year. So,
10% a year for the next, 4 years?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'll take a look and see. I don't know if we have enough in there or not, but I'll keep that in mind.
Is the gas surcharge for the sheriff's deputies something that is in their contract? Or they're just, here, pay this bill?
Yeah.
I mean, I would think if we have a contract with them, the contract covers everything.
Well, the contract says that they'll tell us how much we owe, so.
Well, they did say we owe them $1 million.
I mean, it's supposed to cover the cost of the deputy, and obviously fuel costs have gone up, so
Well,
it's hard to fight that one.
And the increase was how much?
$360.
tell the county commissioners we want to start driving.
No, for the year,
Oh, really?
for the deputy. Mm-hmm.
They can't carry all our equipment in a smart car.
They said it's a 0.3% increase. Now, I don't know.
Yeah. Brandon's got a bike, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Any questions for Cheryl? Cheryl, anything else?
I think that's all I have tonight.
All right, now, Brad, come on up. So we'll share the RFQ information as soon as we get it.
We've waited this long, I think, a few days to know from her.
And so Cheryl and I met with her. She was very confident in our ability to get an existing conditions EAP submitted quickly, and then, get everything shovel ready and wait for FEMA funding to move forward. So we do have time.
I've been sending her a bunch of information. Even today, I got 2 things more from Danny that I forwarded on to her. And she said she was almost ready to come to you with a contract. They were getting final reviews.
Brad?
Okay.
What?
The first item on the agenda is the Gold Award Scout proposal. Ella Kavanaugh is here, and she presented to the Park and Rec Committee at our last meeting. I had met with her the week prior regarding a project, and rather than me getting into it, I'm going to let Ella take care of it. Come on, Ella.
John let you at the park yet?
We didn't get to meet with him, but he showed us where it could be located and kind of told us we were in communications about it.
Kind of some of the information about it. So I'm Ella. I'm a rising senior at Washington High School, and I'm currently a senior in Girl Scouts as well. So I'm working to earn my Gold Award. And what I wanted to do for it was create a community garden in Dogwood Park. So what it will be is just a garden for anyone who uses the park to go to. They can plant their own vegetables, even pick from it. Just a good community garden that can increase access to fresh vegetables and fruits, as well as bring some local pollinators in. It's going to be about 4 by 12 in size as of right now. And so the location we were thinking that we were talking about was behind the park. There was a flat area of land that John was working on that he thought would be good for it. And we plan on putting it in a rice box.
The playground, you meant.
Yes, what I said.
Park.
Yeah.
They just looked at me quizzically.
And then as far as maintenance, I am in a club called Rachel's Kindness Matters, where we often take on projects for the community. So they will be able to help maintain it, as well as reaching out to programs within schools that deal with garden, like Wellington has an environmental club, as well as I believe there's a Wellington Garden Club that is also we look to having help maintain that long term.
To clarify, this is going to be a raised bed.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is.
Raised bed with adequate fencing, if you will, to protect it from animals. As you mentioned, an ongoing maintenance program as well, so that it will be looked after.
And we do have some leftover chain link fence from the tennis court that was used for the dog park, and we can use that, or we can use split rail, whichever makes more sense.
Chain link probably.
So where are you
Sorry.
getting those glass from?
It's all going to be funded. I sold Girl Scout cookies the past year, so I have some money from that. A lot of companies like Lowe's, Home Depot will donate supplies to Girl Scout projects. Pretty much all the funding for it is going to be covered by me and Girl Scouts and other donations. So all of it's going to be covered.
Yeah. And we're talking about this maintenance, there's fencing for animals. Compared to when you start about fence or something else, netting is probably right now.
Chain link would be fine.
I don't know what critter you have, but water access and everything, checked at the
Yes, that location has a
clear
posting.
or whatever.
Yeah.
And John was at our last meeting, the original locations that Ella and I had, we walked the entire park, and we had 2 locations in mind, and John said, well, I was already thinking of starting one over behind the playground area. The area does get enough sunlight, and it does have better access to water than at least one of the 2 locations we were looking at previously.
Any questions for Ellen?
Is this something that, if it catches on, we can expand and make it bigger as community involvement?
Right, yes, of course.
Okay.
I think it's a very nice idea. When you start the thought process, I thought you were going to start construction like in September.
Yeah.
Have some cold season class too.
Yes. Yeah, that was the plan, to kind of get it down in September, put in the plants that are good for that season, and then again in the spring to replant like the plants that would be better in that season. And just kind of continue with that.
This would be a really neat project for like other schools to film out, like elementary schools and middle schools, and and use it as a teaching moment.
That was one of the things I thought about, is reaching out to local elementary and middle schools and seeing if like a sign-up genius, I don't know if any of you have ever used one of those, but creating a sign-up genius where like every other week one of the schools can come out, go to the garden and all of that stuff. It was one of the ideas I was looking into.
And now we're looking at doing fall planting and spring planting? So other than a big proverbial green light, would there be any other things that you would need from council?
Yeah.
That's kind of it, I think. Yeah.
The order is, of course, to get our approval, and then she goes back to the scout council and gets their final approval, and then. Keep going.
She's going to be working with the local, not garden club, but is it garden club?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, what do we have a motion?
So,
Motion to approve.
And a second? Second. All in favor?
I think it's going to be a great project.
Thank you.
What school did you say you went to?
Weddington High School.
Okay, very good.
Excel.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Think about the fencing, whether you want to be chain link or around the kind.
Right. I think when we went to the park to look at the area, we saw some of that chain link fencing while we were there. So
Yeah.
Okay, before we get into the second item, I want to discuss the other one copy, sorry. Ink is expensive. Of the other project that we had approved for the Wellington Garden Club to make that cuttings area. So we actually put that in where the Rotary Garden is, because there's an area where there's nothing growing right now. Made two, essentially three-sided, what you call it, like sections, fence, yeah. So, and then they attached what basically looks like different color carafes to them. With
Yeah, I was
water.
gonna say, what are they? They're not the little plastic water bottle we saw before.
No.
They're very big. I didn't know what were they.
Now I got carafe.
It looks much better. Much
Oh,
better.
yeah, and the sign is.
The sign is beautiful. You do that?
No, Debbie did it. Debbie.
Speaking of signs, they replaced the post on Rotary Club sign and brought it there.
John was going to look at it. I haven't gone down to see if he has, to be honest.
Yeah.
I leaned it back up against the fence so it showed. That was about it.
The exercise station project, whatever happened to it?
I have not contacted him. The last was, I know, before Ken came before council, so I can reach out to him to see where he's at.
But I think it's the same process, excuse me, Brad, that it's the, you got to get the approval from the council, then he's got to go in and take it to the Boy Scouts, get approval from it. There's more red tape than there is shoveling the dirt sometimes on some of these projects. So that's probably where we're at delay-wise. But I think he was planning on having it done before the end of the year.
Okay. Still on. I know that.
I know.
I didn't know exactly where he's at, but I can reach out, get an update.
No.
Okay?
Do you want this back?
That,
Do you want this back?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
yeah.
The next item is the Southbrook event request for December 17th, 2022. Now, the Christmas event we're preparing was Cocoa and Carols. It was in the morning from 10 to 12. I don't remember the exact hours, but that's the week before. This event Southbrook is asking about is more about it is a Christmas-based theme. It's about a nativity, which they would have different stations around the entire lake, essentially, where they would have different animals and scenes, not just animals. You know, sure there'll be people there as well.
So like a donkey, a camel,
And probably a sheep and a goat. And
all right.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't ask for a list of the animals, but I know what's in the nativity. I can tell you those. That would be something they would, run. We may come assist them, Park and Rec, but that's going to be an event they would like to do. And I told them I would run it past council.
Hi, Mom.
And it would be from 5 until 9?
Well, that was what they originally asked for. I did describe to them that we are not typically in favor of events that go past dark, especially since they would have to people have to cross 84 and with deputies there and everything else. But I said I would propose it as they asked, because not up to me to make that decision really, but I did tell them, they did advise.
And in December, it's dark earlier.
Correct.
So
What time is dark in December?
We looked, it was 7.
It's pretty close to the shortest day of the year, December 21st.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is not daylight savings time, and it's short day of the year.
Regardless of what time it is, I'm sure that something will be down at 9 o'clock.
For sure.
And I'm completely against doing anything outside of the normal operating hours of the park right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you think it'd be open to changing your hours, like from, 3 to 7?
I believe they would, yes. I mean, as I said, I did bring it up right away.
No.
Through email.
There's only lights on the bandstand side of the pond. There's nothing, no electricity, no lights on the other side.
But I will say, there are some, I have spoken to George, and there are some separation of church and state things we need to consider.
Okay.
And if we want to discuss it, well, there's no one here, but do we need to go into closed session?
You don't have to. I mean, I'm not. I'm just telling you what the law is. But
Just so you know, I looked it up. Sunset is 5:13 on December 17th.
5:13?
Oh,
5:30?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the shortest time of the year. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm thinking for the day
They
of.
have to have it start at noon or something.
well, I mean, I can review some of the stuff that, and George can speak to it too, but, so there are very clear rules, about when it comes to holiday displays or religious displays on public property.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, the safest approach, other than to have no displays at all, is to have a display that includes several representations of the season, religious and secular, such as the nativity, Santa, Christmas tree, menorah, etc., so the village is not seen as endorsing one religion. If the church is allowed to put up the nativity display, the same opportunity must be given to any other religious groups that want to place a display during the holiday season. And then there's an article. If the nativity scene is done by itself, council could consider planning a sign that disclaims any endorsement of religion or religious views by the village.
I think we've got enough time on this that if we go back to the church and say that our concerns are, one, the timing of the event, given that the sun goes down so early. Plus you want to add in cleanup. If they're willing to change it to being done by 5 o'clock, I think that would probably be more acceptable.
I think we need to think about the end of an event and then clean up and everybody getting back across and everything so that we can't just have events ending at sunset. We have to think about if it's going to be an hour to wrap everything up, then the event needs to end an hour before sunset. Because I don't, we tie everything to sunset and then we're still going to have people in the box.
Yeah, that's the rule though, just sunset. I mean, that's what we've got written down, sunset.
What I'm saying is when we're in time for events, is I don't think we should be scheduling events to go until sunset when we know they're going to have cleanup and other stuff, and now they're going to be walking around in the dark.
Yes.
Trying to get across the street.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Because
if
the
we,
park closes at sunset.
Yeah.
right, if we keep backing it up though, I mean, the thing of it is, they're a really good partner with the council, the town, the village. They let us park over there, I just hate
My comment
that.
has nothing to do with Southbrook. My comment is just events in general that are going to be late in the evening. I think we need to make sure we aren't just always saying just till sunset, but we're recognizing there's time for people to safely disassemble whatever it is and vacate the premises.
So you're suggesting we change our rules to say an hour before sunset?
Maybe for events.
For events, I'm not talking about the park. The park closes at sunset. But for events, since we set the time for all of the events, I'm just saying, it feels like the last couple of months, we've talked a lot about when's sunset, we could do this or that, and I'm like, well, I think we have to make sure there's that buffer for people to safely wrap up the event before it's dark.
I do worry about people crossing that road and take stuff back to South Road in the dark. And you're not, the church I went to growing up, like, got to crossing the street at night. It does happen.
To Lori's point, I think that if we enforce that the park closes at sunset, that's to everybody, whether it be participants, whether it be spectators, whether it be support staff, whomever. It needs to be emptied out. Yeah, I don't know, guys. I've got mixed feelings about this. I mean, to your point, Southbury is a great partner. I mean, every time we have an event, we ask them to help us. But I mean, the only thing that keeps resounding in my mind is, we have said for large groups, we don't want them to come in and overtake the playground. For large groups, we don't want them to come in and basically monopolize the park. Are we being fair on that if we say, large groups over? Come on, I realize it's going to be for the community, but that's my struggle. Right? I don't know if I should say this on the record. I don't have any issues with the church, with the Christian church asking us to do a Christian event there. We're asking we're asking if there were other pastors within the area that were non-Christian. We didn't want to. My only is the hours, making sure that they're in and out within normal park hours.
So can we say the event has to end by 4:30 then? That's 45 minutes before sundown, and so even if it takes an hour, it's not dark at sundown.
No.
So I mean, that would be an extra 15 minutes if it's an hour going on.
No.
I think the only other thing is, when I listened to what you read about the law, is that there's no expectation that we have to go solicit or publicize this event's being held. I like the disclaimer poster. I think that's a positive. So that we're off the hook from saying we're not discriminating from anybody. We just don't know anybody else. And I don't want the burden and have to go solicit for it.
Well, it sounds like we got a few questions and we got a lot of time before the event. We could send Brad back to talk with South Park, see if we can narrow down the time and some of these other things, and come back and discuss it again next month.
Do we want to have any kind of formal motion about finishing minutes prior to sunset, so it's clear from the beginning that organizations don't lose time in their planning?
Well, the reverse of that, we also had a few years ago a sunrise service when the band shell was just about being completed. There was Southwick did a sunrise service at Dogwood Park. People were showing up before the sun came up, and then the whole thing, we had a sunrise service. There was probably people there an hour before the event. Sun came up, had the event, and then another hour after that.
I would say no to that too, for the same reason that people are going to cross the street in the dark.
Because they can drive their cars at the park. They don't have to walk across the street in the dark. I mean, they can bring their cars full of their supplies and reload them. Kids.
And we do have the trail lit between the dam all the way through the trail over to the Wellington Road.
The sign did break the rainbow, they just did not.
That didn't have anything to do with the traffic. Or she was manning the donut station, and she stepped off the sidewalk and twisted her ankle, which didn't have anything to do with the lighting or the traffic.
But it doesn't matter. Today people will see you for anything.
And as far as I know, we didn't get sued for that. It was.
That's what I said. They didn't sue.
But if that's the case, then opening the park period, opening town hall.
Let's just put a lock on it.
Even though it has to be a public thing, somebody walking in town hall, it doesn't matter. If they trip over the curb, it's your fault.
No, but
So
to make
that,
it,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll go back to your point about we need to say something more official about timing, or do we need to think about the policy for park use and just more holistically to have those things to the point about that way the Park and Rec Committee knows what the rules are, and when they're having these conversations with people, then we work half, they don't go down the
I think we already have that. But the park's open from sun up to sundown, and basically everyone needs to be out of the park.
I don't think people need to be micromanaged that far, saying, well, in 45 minutes you've got to leave. I mean, I just don't think, people are smarter than. And it gives me real heartburn to say, well, they're Christians, so we have to really think about can they use it. It's a public park. it's a park for everybody, and Christian or not, you know, we would not turn down anybody that came, as far as like Muslims or Jews or whatever. I mean, and I can't.
I think my conversation was more to tell us that we can't, like, if we allow one thing, we have to be willing to allow it.
Well, of course we would. I mean, why would we prohibit someone?
And I just don't want the burden of going and soliciting, letting everybody know we're doing this.
We don't have to solicit. I mean, it's just,
I'm
we didn't
just saying
solicit
that.
Southbrook.
I'm just saying, I don't want that burden on the village
Mm-hmm.
to be seen as not discriminating. That's why we should use the disclaimer sign.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Although again, I kind of read about too
I
long.
mean, as I said, that was, when I asked her for the park events for the remaining of the year to use parking, the Full Bash and the Carol's, Coco was, saying that thing, that's when she came back, Kelly came back, and said, hey, we had this idea of this event, what would the town think? And as I said, the first thing I brought up was the hours.
So will you go back and tell her that council would like all events completed and everyone out of the park by the time it closes at sundown? And does that impact their request?
Yeah. Got it.
I should have asked this question earlier on. Parks and Rec approved. I mean, are they in favor of?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We did discuss it, was on the agenda. Okay. Thank you. Next is the updated end of summer jam. That is what this shirt is actually about. I broke the rules, so I paid the penalty, but I wanted to get them, so I had an idea after our last meeting that, we would have some sort of shirts that would go with the kind of event to begin with, and then we said, well, what if we just label them Village of Wesley Chapel volunteer, period. And then, of course, it still means the Park and Rec people who would come back event to event, sure, they can use the same shirt. The people that, other people like spouses that may come, same thing, but if you've got people like students or whatever coming in and grabbing some hours and things like that, you might not get those shirts back. And I don't know if I want to request them back, because I don't want to be in the laundry business. But first of all, let's get to the whole thing. So the preliminary approval for the event was at $3,260. We had some cost adjustments, which were the handicapped porta johns and regular porta johns and sinks. That increased $25. The banners we actually saved money on. Michelle did some magic. Hopefully they hold up, but I mean, she saved us quite a bit of money. It's about more than half actually that we paid last time. The truck rental doubled, so we would have gone down essentially $100 and a quarter, I think.
Yeah.
But then I wanted to add on T-shirts for volunteers. As I say, if the council's not in favor, that's fine. I mean, if I was paying for it, I've already purchased them because I wanted to get them with the Village of Wesley Chapel volunteer. So, I needed time, and there's just no time between now and the end of the month to get all that done. So, the shirts actually came to $241 because tie-dye is more expensive. Dang it. I did get a deal, actually. But there was also a $50 Union County fee for a bounce house, if you can get a bounce house, within the correct insurance, certificate of insurance, et cetera. It's not a contract, so I understand all that.
Oh,
but Amy made me aware today, the town is not exempt from paying that $50 fee that Union County comes out and actually inspects it to make sure it's secured, I guess, to the ground, probably.
Well, has Amy submitted to the county? I believe she submitted, and we don't have a bounce house, so I don't know how she could have submitted a bounce house.
She submitted possible, I believe she told me. That's what I saw. It's
I haven't
on the
seen
map.
it. I have no contract from anybody for a bounce house.
No, I know that.
Okay.
We cleared up the issue with we cleared it up. We found out exactly what, we need to be aware of within the contracts. And we also reached out to towns just this week, because we know other towns are having them. And are they breaking the rules? Or are they, because they all have the same park insurance, basically.
They may not. I don't know.
They largely do. Nobody wants to take liability for those things. So Monroe is using 3 different companies. They actually contracted with one for an entire year. But again, until we get the COI in and look at it, make sure it meets our requirements, we have to make sure that it covers all the liability, because we are prohibited as a town from taking on any of that liability. So essentially, and our insurance, which I understand.
Now, aren't your volunteers the same people over and over again? Probably. I mean, it just seems like they could.
Well, certainly the Park and Rec folks, yes. Some of their spouses, yes.
You were concerned about them not, being the same, but I mean, it seems like they would just rewear the t-shirts. I think it's a great idea.
Didn't we have a discussion last year about people not being able just to go out by shirts with Wesley Chapel on them, that we had to make sure we had a formal way
For staff, we did.
Nothing's been labeled, so what?
For staff, we had a discussion about getting them from an approved source.
But then we also decide on bond and something else. And just thinking about the branding for the village, like if we're going to be doing something like that.
I forget where we ordered John's from this last time.
It's a place in Monroe. I forget the exact name, but we did have a name.
Would that be the same when you're asking for volunteer shirts as opposed to staff? I mean, I can see.
I'm talking about like the Village Wesley Chapel Park. It should be a brand. It's the logo for the thing. And I think we should be consistent across them, not just like plain block letters.
Yeah.
Volunteer to be plain block letters.
Oh,
I
understood.
forget how Village of Wesley Chapel got it on it, but we can certainly find that out.
But you've already ordered them, right?
Well, I got them in today. That's why.
He hasn't written
He
on
not
it.
got it printed out.
Pardon? No. Printing is separate. This is from separate companies. I got 30 at a very good deal. I think it's a very good deal, $8 a shirt.
Very handsome too. Of course, I'm a tie-dye fan.
And last year, there was a comment because John walked around the church of Wesley Chapel, like, wouldn't it be kind of cool if we had some sort of Wesley Chapel shirt we could sell? So,
I think it would be cool to have a Wesley Chapel shirt.
yeah, I like tie-dye, so, Wesley Chapel on there, that'd be cool.
That's what I said. We
It could
use
be a
this
way
at
to,
every event, it'll be a theme. So, that this, you can spot us on the aisle of what it is.
I want to be spotted for a while.
You're always spotted. You're out of line.
The vendor that you used, would you be able to order more if needed?
Yes.
Well, that's a good idea, Lori, having this, sell some. That's a really good idea.
Could we, if you want to do that, can you arrange it so that they handle all that? Otherwise, I start collecting sales tax and remitting it monthly, and
Right.
That's not a lot of fun, yeah.
And I'm fine if I have to eat that charge too.
You're not gonna do it.
As I said, because I know
Okay,
that.
bye.
Charles, you're saying the Parks and Rec Committee could, on their own, go purchase shirts to sell?
No, they couldn't.
What?
No. No, I'm sorry. No, I'm saying a long time ago, I'm thinking, and this is a little bit different, but a little bit the same. We had a contract with Postnet one time that he wanted to sell, I don't know, like labels or bumper stickers or something. So we had a contract with him, and he gave us a commission on what he sold, but then he handled all that. So I'm just thinking that there are T-shirt places that maybe would want to do that, and they can sell them. Then we're not. The town shouldn't really be in the business of selling things. It's not a
I
normal.
was thinking that as a fundraiser because we raise money for everybody else. Why not raise money for ourselves?
But the other thing is, once you do it, you have to deal with the Department of Revenue and file tax returns, and
Do you know way to get around that?
no, you're selling things. You shouldn't get around it,
We could ask for a donation. They're free with a donation. You have to make a donation. How about that?
We're not supposed to collect money. We're not supposed to touch money.
We had a box of, 30 old shirts that we gave away at the last event. The DJ do a little trivia, and if you answer the trivia question, they got an old
That
Parks and Rec shirt.
Well, that was from Friends of the Parks that
Yeah.
Sandra gave me the box. And I don't know what these
Yeah, yeah.
small shirts thing. I
They
thought,
were
wait.
big in the park, T-shirts and Grand Opening shirts and a few other little
So we had the
shirts.
DJ build it into the.
Those were not town shirts, though. I didn't even
No, I
know about them.
understand.
So what action do we need to take?
Well, we can either approve the, wait, do the math in my head. 3260, we said it would actually ended up,
It increased it by $125.
no, it actually decreased unless the shirts, so that was 200. 200 is what I asked for here, but I found out in the meantime that it was 241 plus the $50 potential bounce house fee for the county. We have to pay the county to come inspect it. So in total, it would be $34.85
To
if
me-
the council is willing to go that route.
To me, we approved up to $4,000 per event. So you need, to me, you increase down.
I'm just coming back. It's the way I want to do it.
Yeah, I agree.
No
What is
surprises.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to see it to where that when we first approved the end of the summer jam, and you said these are the things we're entertaining to do with it, and we said, yep, we budgeted $4,000 for it. We just approved not to exceed the 4,000, and that gives you the leeway if it's, 50 here, 50 there.
Michelle, of course.
Yeah, working with Cheryl, I know council has to approve contracts.
Right.
But that will give you some wiggle
A
room.
little,
Okay.
a little leeway, and not have to keep coming back for every penny.
I understand.
But just,
I mean, I want to account for everything, so.
yeah, no, I appreciate that, but I'm also trying to make it a little easier for everybody. Too.
I mean, before we move on, could you model the t-shirt?
Yes.
And the theme of it is, the name of the shirt is Woodstock, believe it or not.
All
I didn't go to Woodstock.
All
So do we need a motion, Cheryl, to adjust the budget, or can we just say we mentioned that?
Well, I heard you say that you were okay with a 4,000 per event budget, and you didn't care how he spent it.
Not that we don't care, we're just trusting Parks and Rec to spend them appropriately in conjunction with staff. And then if you came and reported that you didn't, then we have to go backwards in our trust level.
Absolutely fair, and understood, and that's why I said the council wasn't happy with it. The shirts at least me, so, I'm willing to pay for this one go around just because, it
I
came
like
up.
the idea of you have a shirt to set yourself apart. Now, maybe one for
And
every
reuse.
event is expensive.
No, that's why I said, those that can be used, at least we get some cut in the expense of it to event.
It'll be very unique.
I had to search for it, so.
So we'll try to connect with I think Amy has the order form for the shirts to see.
I have the invoice.
Do they do the embroidery too? Not the embroidery, but the imprinting? Is that what you're saying? Village of Wesley Chapel?
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes it really cohesive.
Oh, absolutely.
They made John's shirts, yeah.
No, I know. I had someone volunteer who's willing to do that, but let's do it the right way. Is point it. I'm fine.
And then I just think that we need to think about it as a budget item. Like if y'all walk in Lowe's and say, this is our style, this is what we're going to do, that we do know there's going to be a change in membership or change of year, so that, that we're not surprised periodically that we need to buy more shirts.
No, I would say I've been at this at 30 the first go around and 6 different sizes. But I will, we'll see what the turnover rate is and maybe build in a 50% or whatever the number is. I don't know what it's going to be, but fair enough.
I think y'all will do that.
Sounds great.
Okay.
There's two other items in conjunction with the event, and that's the two contracts I sent to council. So we need motions to approve the band, the $485 $800 fee, and the sound guy $300 fee. The contracts. So.
So do we have a motion for the sound guy contract?
I make a motion to approve the contract for Austin Wetmore for the end of summer jam.
second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? All right.
Okay, one other item. You remember we had spoken before the June car show event that Weddington High School was invited to go to Hawaii for the Pearl Harbor Day. They never came back to us. They had said, "Oh, will you guys be interested?" We said yes, but nobody ever came back. Well, they come back now.
Yeah.
So the question would be, they essentially want to set up a table. They may sell us, band merchandise or maybe even shirts that say, Weddington Band or whatever, as well as take donations for their upcoming thing. It's an approved, I think they were meeting, last night. I didn't back directly. If they had gotten approval from they have a board that's running the whole event, of course, on this magnitude. But this was going to be one of the things they said if they could they would be allowed to set up a table at the end of summer.
That's quite very prestigious. They were invited to Pearl Harbor. That's huge. I mean, that really is. So that's a big compliment to them. So yeah, I
supporting our youth. So this actually came, I think, through Julie after our meeting. So the Park and Rec Committee has not met, but we had talked about it before the June event. So I have no doubt that they will support it 100%.
Yeah, I think it's great. Do you have any motion to that?
I think it's good because
Consensus.
it's a very special event.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I want to get into just, I don't know, maybe we do, say whatever club is at the high schools can come raise money at events and stuff. That might be going a little too far.
Yeah.
But I think this is a very, very nice honor for them.
It's a unique one-off. That's what I would look at it as. So,
Do we need a motion, George?
Probably.
I'll make a motion that we allow them to sell stuff at the event so that they can raise money for their Pearl Harbor Day attendance.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? All right.
I should say, do we need to, I should have said it before the motion, sorry. Do we need to waive, because usually there's a vendor fee or something like that. Do we need to think about that
No.
and waive that?
No.
It's not official, yeah, I wouldn't worry
It's not
about it.
official, okay.
No.
Cool, thank you. Thank you, Council. All right, movie night event update. The Park and Rec Committee is recommending that it's a family movie called Bad Guys. It's somewhat animated. I have not seen it yet.
This one down. Oh, it's cute.
The
I've seen the
what?
commercials.
I have seen the commercials as well.
Good family movie.
Yeah.
It's good.
Well, that's and it's rated very well, and it's for as a family movie, by the way. We haven't looked that up and all that jazz. So I just want to make sure that was going to be okay with council. Can we communicate that? I think over to the Union County PNR folks.
Yes.
I think we've talked about this before about we wanted to have the restrooms open, and we talked about starting the event a little bit early with food trucks and things like that. We are looking into, can I never answer Chris wants to get back there, but when they got the giant bags of popcorn, they had it on their events.
They were very popular.
Things like that. So we wanted to have the town hall for the bathrooms open. I'm willing, the Park and Rec can station somebody here to make sure, people are coming in and out. That's it.
All they have access to is the bathrooms, the lobby.
Right,
and
they lock everything
lobby.
else. Agreed, but it's still.
Where exactly are we going to set up the meeting?
We were talking about doing it over here, but I know you were going to contact.
Yeah, I think we need to check with them and they'll let us know what would work best.
But we talked about potentially the end of that. So block that off, and then people could.
I just think I would get them from there to in here for that.
Yeah.
Think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll probably need this door open, the side door, not the front door necessarily. And then, we talked about food trucks, there's no cost to us. Popcorn, I don't know the cost of yet. We're looking to get donations of water. We don't think we should be trying to get donations of soda and giving it out when you've got food trucks here, because that's competing with them. We're not trying to compete with them. We're just looking at a potential September. We never know how long it's going to be. Kind of
You
thing.
can get a case of 80 waters for $4.
We did talk about a preliminary budget, but we don't have all of the numbers together as yet. One of the things that people talked about, and again, the town doesn't have to do this, but we're talking about kind of making a fun thing. So maybe getting those light sticks that they get, bracelets and stuff.
Yeah.
For $60, you can get about 1,200 of the things.
Okay.
So we're not proposing going crazy, believe me. Keep it simple. Popcorn, that food trucks, as I say, will do their own thing.
Makes it easier to find your kids. And there's glow sticks on.
Are you going to have some kind of trash? We don't have all the garbage pails that you have at the park. How are you going to control trash?
They come away from the park.
Yeah, we'll bring a couple over.
Make that happen.
Between Mike, John, and I, we'll figure it out.
Okay. And when you guys said 4,000 per event, is this event at one of the 4,000?
No, this is the one that's
Okay.
working with the county.
The county's doing the movie, and then we're providing little incidental things.
So do we need to approve a budget amount for this event?
Well, that's what I kind of recommended. If you want it, not necessarily now, but you can, of less than $500.
That works for me.
Yeah.
Have a motion for
Keep us
$500?
down.
Yeah, so much.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Yeah.
Mike, are you in favor?
Yeah.
So, unanimous. That'll give you some freedom to plan.
Okay. That works. We can use the shirts again, too.
Now do you glow in the dark?
I think the glow stick around there today very
I
well.
don't know yet. They're kind of itchy, so I like
I was thinking of a more traditional show, something like that. It just says Wesley Chapel Parks. It's more,
Well, that's kind of what John's are similar to that.
yeah.
But that's fun.
I think for the volunteers, this is very.
People can spot you, and that's what you want. If somebody needs help, they need questions, information.
It's lighthearted, they're easy to spot. When you see 20 people walk around the church, they're all on them.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Next two items are not me.
So we need to appoint Julie Thomas, that's me, right? Appoint Julie Thomas to a new 3-year term on the Parks and Rec Committee.
Yeah.
And then playground rules.
Yeah.
So Parks and Rec said they wanted us to send out to like friendship lists and social media about the group rule for the park. It gave me a little heartburn, so I wanted to come to council. I have a little bit of heartburn about putting the spotlight on the rule that we've had trouble and, that's given us trouble. We've also had trouble with people littering at the park and there are dogs in the playground. So do we want to highlight only one rule? Because I guarantee it's going to be like that. One group that wanted to come and it was this huge fiasco and there's going to be social media drama. And I think we either need to highlight all the rules for the park versus just we're limited to 10 per. 10 per whatever.
And there was a second group, so I already broke that rule, by the way.
How many rules are there?
A bunch.
Is it going to get lost in the...
I think with that specific rule, I think the better thing to do is identify the culprit and then reach out to them directly. And I'm happy to do that, or we can send them a letter.
John walked up to them at the park and talked to both of them, and they're both very agreeable.
I just hesitate to go on social media and sunshine and be like, groups of no more than 10 can use the playground. And then everybody's gonna weigh in with their opinion and why are we limiting, like, why don't we have a bigger playground, and it's just, but that's my opinion. Council?
We've had similar issues where people say, I know you've got a 4-foot sign over there that says the dog park rules, but I think you need to make another sign that just emphasizes this one specific thing because it affects me. And I'm like, I got a 4-foot sign that has all the rules as you come and go. Double-sided, so you can see it coming and going. How much more do you want to do? And I think we've actually put additional signs up at the dog park. Even though they're already listed, we've got to list it again.
No. So are we talking about just posting the rules on the website? No?
I think the rules are on the website now. The playground rules are on the website.
No, playground rules are not, I don't think, on the website. Park rules, we got rules for dog parks, and we got rules for park, and we got rules for playgrounds.
So I guess we need to add our playground rules to our rules.
But there's also the information sign right outside the playground,
I know.
which would be a good place to just kind of get them again. You put a sign on every piece of equipment.
And they still won't read that.
They don't read them, yeah.
No, because somebody will get cut by a sign and then you.
So I just don't think we need to draw attention to the one rule that 2 people have broken.
I think if the rules are posted on the website, and then there's an inquiry or someone complains, we can say the rules are posted, and much like John did, talk to the offending party, and it goes away. But the rules are publicly available.
Oh, yeah.
And they're easy to reference and say, those are the rules.
Actually, sign right outside the playground. Yeah, listed.
Everyone good with that?
Mm-hmm. No.
Okay. All right, thank you, Brad. Anything else for Brad?
I'll just say that Wood County was here in April on the Boy Scout project, presented in April.
Yes.
Now it's within 4 months, so we thought maybe
I'll check
something
on it.
about it.
All right, we'll check on
I
it.
know, we just didn't remember the date.
Anything further, Brad?
Well, a little clarification, Cheryl, we have a limit on how long banners can be up before an event. We're going to put the additional banners up tomorrow, unless there's a legal reason why we can't put them up.
Well, the event's on the 27th, and that would be like the 9th. Yeah, I think they can be up for 30 days, right?
Okay, so we're good.
30 days, yeah.
We'll shoot for tomorrow sometime.
Okay.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you. Thank you, Council.
All right, so that brings us to a resolution for the county economic development. You all saw the email from Chris Clay. Reading between the lines, I think there's just some concern about the change in commissioner makeup in the fall, and if people are happy with the way things are running now and the priorities, they're asking for us to voice our support now. And I said I'll have to bring that back to council. What are your thoughts?
None.
I don't have a problem with
They're asking for our support in continued development of the county.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
What do you think?
And that's what Kay's doing, you know, like bringing jobs and stuff to the workforce and to businesses and industries to the county. So I think the actual resolution is
Brad, just leave it, I'll take it. Brad, just leave it, I'll take it.
He's fine with us.
Just leave it, I'll take it.
Brad.
I want to see if she does something.
Thank you, Brad. So item 8. Is the actual resolution. We have to change the things at the bottom. I didn't see anything like positive or negative.
I mean, the one I think would maybe
And it would be just like some kind of developer to come up and say, but yeah, you signed this, and you know.
Well, that's what you have to worry about, is there any kind of a backdoor?
Well, no, we'd say, yes, we support this, but look at our comprehensive plan. Right here.
Well,
I don't know.
are you at the same time by signing that saying you support the 7% increase in water for the next 4 years?
Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea. I really don't. I'm not in favor of supporting it. That's just me.
I don't know. I think anything that we can do to encourage the county, support them in sustaining and growing economic investments and development, I'm all for it. If it costs us 7% in water, that may or may not happen with that development, but I'm sure we'd feel better about having more development in the county that could offset that in the future.
Now, the argument is Union County growing too fast? And should we be focusing less on development, more on infrastructure?
Exactly. And this is the Chamber's deal, and the Chamber's all about business and growing business. And
True. But there's the flip side of the coin is the argument of we should be focusing on infrastructure now so that we can have growth later, instead of focusing on growth now and infrastructure if we get around to it.
But then if they develop, continue development and just say municipal infrastructure, I support it. Anyway.
I mean, we could take out the things we object there.
But is that going to be what they want? They want, I mean,
It's not like they want just a blanket.
yeah.
Do they just want a blanket, we approve of what you're doing?
They want a blanket, we support the way the county is running right now, so when someone else has the majority in the fall, they can say, look, don't fire the county manager, don't stop this stuff, it's because
Politics.
we're
Yeah.
But I think that
running great.
can be twisted to some degree, and that's what I'm concerned about.
Let's take a vote.
And
If I agreed 100% with what the county was doing right now, I would have no problems with this, but
I don't either.
I'm not 100% in agreement to give them a blanket, A+ on their report card.
right, and I am really happy about, well, I think I'm happy with their 2050 plan, but it still goes, like, we still do not have confirmation. It is not approved yet. And let me see them refer somebody in transition zone to us, and then I will believe what they're saying. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot in here that you're saying you support that we might.
And it may come down to once they approve their comp plan, that we have a resolution that we support their plan. In particular, the transition plan.
Right.
Laura, that's a good point. That's a great point.
I mean, that's the part we want to support.
Well, yeah, we could write a resolution supporting their 2050 plan, especially the inclusion of transition funds. That could be what they get from Wesley Chapel.
We know all their 2050 plan, though. There might be some stuff in there that we don't.
Yeah, I sent it to planning board. For the most part, there's nothing highly objectionable. Not all of it is stuff that we would allow in Wesley Chapel, but it is nowhere near what they would have done several years ago. We could just say, we can issue a resolution saying we really support the transition zones. Right?
Yes.
What do you think, Bob?
But my very probably uninformed opinion about the resolution is about saving a few people's jobs who've been probably whispered about not needing their services anymore come December the 8th or whatever it will be. That is probably 90% of that resolution. And I don't really have a whole. I know Chris kind of tangentially, and I guess they do a good. I don't know enough about what's going on with Union County economic development to really have much of an opinion on it. I think a lot of economic development stuff is rainmaking, but who knows?
So what do we need to move on this? Do we need a motion to approve or deny?
Or we could just say
We discussed it.
We discussed it.
We discussed it.
Consensus was.
Because we are not comfortable or have enough opinion. If I got a demand. We could just say we discussed, because Richard Downs is going to ask. So we discussed it, and
We're looking forward to the approval of their 2050 comprehensive plan.
yeah, we are anxiously awaiting
Yes.
the approval of the transition zone process.
That will better exemplify what they're trying to accomplish there.
But we could also be ready to ostracize anybody who's gone out of their way to do things that maybe would hurt the county in the long run. It would be after the fact, obviously, but
I'm also not comfortable just getting into a political peeing contest. Trying to be polite.
That's a good point. We are Wesley Chapel, and we stand for what we stand, and y'all can play what you want.
if I had never stood in front of the county commissioners and objected to some of the things they were doing, I would have no problem with this. But at the same time, I have stood up there and basically told them I don't agree with what they're doing, and because of that,
But I will say, I think that relationship is better than it's been.
Oh, absolutely, it's better. But at the same time, there's been some budgeting issues. There's been some spending things that they've done that John Q. Public does not know about because they don't go through and read the agendas or the documentation, and they just turn a blind eye to it. I don't want to get on my soapbox too much, but they have done some questionable things.
So we've got a general consensus.
Yeah, it's not comfortable passing a resolution at this time.
I'm fine with that.
So you don't think it's a good idea to say we voted against it to make it stand, or just you think would you just leave it up, leave it alone? Okay.
That way we're not on either side.
Yeah, they're asking all municipalities for this.
I think so.
I'll be curious to see what the other municipalities' spin on it was or is.
Yeah. All right, so public hearing regarding the Village Vision 2050 plan and possible adoption. I open the public hearing. Anybody want to speak? Okay, I close the public hearing. And do we have a motion to adopt the Village Vision 2050 comprehensive plan?
Sure, I make a motion to adopt the Village Vision 2050 comprehensive plan.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
I want to see everybody back here in 2050 to make sure what we approved got done.
I'll keep tabs on it.
So when you
Mark your
adopted,
calendars now.
when you adopted that, you were adopting this resolution?
Yes, ma'am.
That's correct. Okay.
Thank you for keeping me straight. Thank you, Vaughn. and
Now you're
for
all
your work.
those committee members are now released from their duties. So officially.
So did the
You can have
people
an
that
after party?
No more
made the plan
dinners?
back in 1973, did they come, and just say, hey, this is what we envisioned?
Well, I want a plaque for being on the committee. So, wherever we gotta put it.
So can we get a hard copy of the document?
Do you want me to print and bind some for you?
Sure.
I'll make how many do y'all want? Is that each of you want one?
I would like one.
Yeah,
We'll-
just one.
We'll print them in nice paper, spiral bound, stuff like that.
Oh, that'd be
I think
awesome.
the planning board to have a copy as well.
Yeah, I'll get one for everybody.
And maybe some just on here in case anybody wants to see it.
Sure.
You can leave mine on the desk up front.
Well, you did a really good job on that. I'm
Thank
very
you.
proud of it. I think it's an excellent document.
It's a good process.
I think that the professionalism of it, the style of it, and everything is just so good. And I think it honestly is so much better than any of us probably could have envisioned last summer or whenever it was we first started down this path.
Great.
Maybe it's 2 summers ago. I don't know. It's like forever. I feel secure in what we want and what we don't want. Exactly. Now, what are our next steps to implement?
Well, there's not a whole lot of stuff in there about money. There's not like big projects that require a lot of spending of funds. I think some of there's some policy stuff that's maybe not low-hanging fruit, but is doable over the shorter term, having to do with realignment of some of the zoning and subdivision regulations on the land use side that we could probably accomplish. So it'd be updating some of the conservation design requirements, changing some requirements related to small subdivisions on our state roads, on the main roads around town. Those just kind of pop into mind as some of the, if you want to start moving on some things that are relatively not easy, but can be done relatively quickly. That's some stuff that the planning board could start working on.
So it sounds like you have a list of the things that would be most impactful to do the fastest and the soonest or whatever.
Yeah, maybe. I think some of that depends.
In a methodical way.
Yeah, I know the mayor had inquired about larger wholesale changes to some, the ordinances, and so I guess some of that kind of depends on where some of that stands. But there's nothing is dependent on a wholesale change.
I'd like to live on updating the land use zone.
We'll need to get some new maps too, won't we? The future land use map.
Yeah, I'll make you a big version.
Really?
Yeah. We'll have. Monica's gonna.
We struggle to get cheap maps.
We can print them, so I was going to have Monica redo the zoning map just to kind of modernize it some, just to update the cartography of it. So when we're doing that, we can use the same format for the future land use map. That if you want to have some larger size ones for town hall, we can do that.
Yeah.
And also just high resolution. We have a decent high resolution zoning map on the internet now, but we can. Some of the cartography on there is just kind of old with like street names and stuff like that.
Sounds
to be
good to me.
Cleaned up.
I think that'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds awesome. Okay. Any further questions about the planning? That takes us to our ordinance for amendment for changes to the special use permit. That was in your packet. We did the public hearing in July. So we have a motion to, you want to speak to this one, or are we good?
Yeah, just a reminder that this is what we've been working on probably for about 6 or 7 months now, in terms of reducing the circumstances in which special use permits are required. There's still a number of things that require special use permits, particularly in the RA 40 district, and then some of the more impactful commercial and industrial types of uses that we're generally unlikely to see, but just in case there's some additional standards for those. Just as a reminder, this also removes a number of uses from districts where we found them to be problematic. They're not allowed there by right, not with a special use permit. So things like large religious institutions, schools, things of that nature will be limited to our non-residential zoning districts, which would necessitate then somebody interested in doing any larger versions, at least of those things, to come and make application through the planning board and through the council to be able to rezone property, to be able to do them versus just basically anywhere in town just deciding if they want to apply for a special use permit, go through that process. And just, I think I noted at the last council meeting that, this would, because it makes things like schools a use by right now in the O&I district, and so something like the Arborbrook Academy expansion, construction of new buildings, that would be allowed as a use by right now. So the property is zoned properly on that campus now for O&I, and so their expansion would just take place under the guise of the regulations of the ordinance. And just, people often have concerns, well, we don't get to look at the traffic. I can assure you that, today Travis Pressler sent they have to do a TIA for the NCDOT no matter what, just because of the volume of traffic that would be generated there. And so he's rejected their first TIA already. So they're.
I'm sorry, who did you say?
I'm sorry?
Who Travis?
Travis, the district engineer
For Arborbrook?
For our NCDOT. But yes, so they've been working on a TIA, and so it has been. The first one's been rejected, and they're going back to address his comments now. So those things are looked at without necessitating going through that kind of process, and we will still have input into them. So just make sure everybody's aware that there will be some changes. Many things that would have required a special use permit before will not require one. Things like characterized as short wireless telecommunications towers will just be developed in accordance with the standards of the ordinance for things like setbacks and height and things of that nature. Now, if somebody's wanting to do a 400-foot tall tower, yes, they would have to then come to you, go through that process because of the difference in the impact, it being so tall, but under 200 feet would be allowed subject to the standards in the ordinance.
Do we currently have a maximum height of 200 feet?
No. There's only a use of telecommunications towers. What this ordinance, adopting the ordinance amendments, does is it separates it into two categories. One, that particular use into two categories: one 200 feet, or one under 200 feet, and one 200 feet and greater. The one under 200 feet, because that's the point at which you start triggering FAA notification and lighting and stuff like that. Those the shorter ones would just be approved administratively. The taller ones would still have to go through the process, and they're not allowed in like the R40 district anymore, like at all. You couldn't apply for a 200-foot tower in R40 district.
I think this is a great way to simplify and streamline.
We will see.
But you could do it in OI.
Village, to be able to make it clear for people that if you want to work with the village, it's very clear what you can do, where you can do it, and to take out some of the bureaucracy with some of the special use requests that we've had in the past. I think it's a positive because I think that one reason we've had some contentious discussions of some things in the past is things weren't as clearly articulated, and it's hard to defend that.
The issue was, that's a good way of putting it. I think another part of that issue was that the R40 district, which is the most prevalent district in town, it was fairly wide open for a fairly large number of pretty impactful uses when developed at scale. And so saying that, well, this district's really for residential use, and if you have a small religious institution, for instance, with a smaller kind of capacity where you might get 50 or 60 cars on a busy Sunday versus 500 or 600, then that's fine. It can fit in because we still have a minimum size and things like that for doing that. But I think I hope I share your optimism that this will improve things. It will, we will see.
I don't think it's going to make it worse.
Oh, it's not going to probably will not make it worse.
So this would allow a large church in an OI, huh?
Yeah.
It's an institution. It's a religious institution.
But I mean, we do have an area of OI that we didn't want a lot of traffic and impact there.
It's up to the council.
So do I have a motion to amend the zoning ordinance?
I make a motion we approve the 2022-12 amendment for changes to special use permits.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Yes. Okay, thank you, Vaughn. Next is the review of the camera policy. It's also in the packet. So this is the policy currently that we have for our cameras here in the building. Thoughts, questions?
Sure is detailed.
Agreed.
I mean, real detailed, down to what you gotta wear to look at.
Well, I think that's appropriate for the data privacy and security that we have to have, because the discussion that I recall back in 2019, sitting out there, was really about ensuring that the right people looked at it when appropriate and it wasn't just abused. And I think people have to have confidence that, you know, it's there, but it's not something that you're going to see posted on Facebook. It's not something people are going to be looking at so they can talk about it. It's there when needed to be able to, you know, support law enforcement.
And I'm pretty sure our attorney helped us write this.
Of course, that explains it.
The only thing I saw was that, you know, it was like list of people who were approved to view it, and we keep a log of it. They didn't really say, like, if I come up and I say, hey, I want to see the film from yesterday, how I, you know, who approves that? Just because I'm on the list that a council member can see it, can I just go look at it, or is there actually?
Well, I think that's under item L.
What else?
Item L goes into when the copies of the recording can be released.
No, but I'm looking at,
Well, that's a copy.
yeah,
Is that?
yeah. No, I was looking at item.
Well, E says only
E.
certain people can view it.
Right, but what I'm saying is, like, as a counselor, says I can view it, but are you saying the only time I can view it are for those situations under L? I didn't read it that way.
I don't know. I'd look at this in
Yeah,
here.
I think those are different items. And like, it says those people can read it, and then you can get a copy of it if you're at.
Yeah, but if I want to look at it, I should be able to come in and turn it on and look at it, or there should be some off.
Well,
So that we have traceability for the data that we're making.
and limiting the amount of people that can look at it.
Didn't I? Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, it's been. I don't remember when this was drafted. It's been a couple years.
2019.
I thought part of the issue was there was no way to go view it, right? Wouldn't that?
Well, at the time,
No, we have to keep 30 days.
No, but I mean, like at the time, the security system didn't have. There was no video monitor that you could even go watch it. It had to be downloaded and copies produced and all that kind of stuff, right?
But now you
But-
can. You can go in there and look at it, if you know the software work, right?
and we're going to have the block cameras as well.
I mean, that's up to y'all. I mean, I think you could say nobody can. Only certainly designated people can go in there, and I mean, Cheryl's the custodian of the records, right? People can't just show up at the office and say, I want to go back into her files and just flip through them.
That's right.
But it can be difficult, and you know, you guys are pretty congenial, but not all councils are congenial. And that could put the clerk in a difficult position.
I think that was probably part of it back when it was not such an agreeable council.
And the next council might not be agreeable.
Right. It'll happen sooner or later. Yeah.
Because I agree with you, I don't want to be putting the clerk in an awkward position, you know, so I don't know if that means that we further limit, you know, just say,
Maybe some of the places where it says copies of recordings should be changed to viewing recordings, viewing or copies. Luckily, no one's asked to look at anything.
Yeah,
But
because the only time we would go to look at ours is that there was crime or public record requests. So I would be okay changing L to say viewing and copies of your recording. Viewing of recordings and copies of recordings shall only be released.
Yeah.
So that still says that council can come in and say, we've had a crime, let's look at it. But
Yeah, but it doesn't always fall. Let me give you an example, and this goes back a number of years. I don't like to put anybody's name to it. It's you know what, Cheryl, can I use you as an example? Do I have your permission?
go ahead.
I don't like Cheryl, and I don't think Cheryl's giving us enough time, and I think she's coming to late to work every day, and I think she's leaving early. Therefore, I, as a council member, want to go back and review all the videotapes to see what time Cheryl comes to work, see what time she leaves, and then I'm going to use that against her to get her fired.
That's exactly why I was saying you shouldn't be able to, as a council member, go in and look at that.
That's why I'm bringing it
You
up.
could change it to mayor or designated person in case the mayor's not available.
Mayor and clerk finance officer,
Just take out council member altogether.
because at that time, frankly, I was surprised the village didn't take further action on that council member, but shouldn't have. I wasn't, and I wasn't.
I don't have a problem with taking out council member. Just leave it the mayor.
I'll
clerk.
look at it and bring it up.
Well,
I don't ever have to look at it.
in my example, that wasn't a criminal act.
Right.
So if you said
It's
only...
harassing the town employees.
Well, exactly. But at the same time, and I just use this as an example. Hey, David, did you see that supermodel that walked by the front of town hall yesterday? Let's you and I go look at the video and see the supermodel. They just walk.
Yeah, we don't want that either.
We don't want that either. You know, was that a crime? No.
But yeah, if we could update it, say mayor and clerk finance officer, and then to view and copy, and then all. I think that would close up the loopholes we're talking about.
Ms. Boyce?
Would there ever be a situation where council as a whole would have to view something off of a security camera?
Maybe.
So if we're doing that, and we're saying, no, we can't do that, we've only got to take the perspective of the mayor to enlighten us as to what she feels took place.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there's two sides to that coin again, and it can be abused and it can be used.
Well, what if you change it to like, what if you change E to say mayor, administrator, or upon majority vote of council? I don't know. Or just, I don't know.
Yeah, if you leave council over there, but you change it to view and copy, that means none of us can just go view it unless.
Well, I like the majority of council issue.
Take your scenario, Mike, and Cheryl, forgive me if I can continue to use you as an example.
Why don't you use Amy?
Use John Leckie. Let's use Amy. Let's say Chuck Mumpauer gets elected mayor. Okay? Amy's on staff. Amy doesn't show up for a week. You know, you realize it, and you're like, okay, let me look at this. If Chuck's the mayor, you don't look at it.
Yeah.
I think the idea that, yeah, I mean, you don't always have a great mayor either, like we have today. But yeah. So yeah, that's.
Top of the wall, right?
Hey, you there? There was no policies to cover personnel action.
It's kind of weird though, because in L it's talking about the copies, the recording, and then it says that public records requests shall be received and reviewed by the village administrator. And then it's
updated roles, so we already have village administrator.
yeah, I know that you changed that, but I mean, and then it says requests shall be reviewed by them and handled in conjunction with the legal advice from the village attorney. So it's like, well, somebody can see it, but they can't get a copy of it. What good does it do that? I don't know.
Well, we do have some time. We could probably marinate on it for a month and bring your ideas back or have George review it again.
Yeah, because we do have to think about the new flock cameras. And honestly, those are the ones I'm thinking about as much as this one in here.
And I bet if we contact Flock or one of their customers, they probably already have a policy that we could copy or alter to fit our specific needs.
Yeah, I think it's going to be part of our.
So we'll have to have almost 2 separate policies.
Or try to roll new one down.
I can try to get some policies from other towns. I think you should have one policy. Flock's not that different than the other cameras.
It's a digital recording of an activity in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
It's, still public records stuff.
So we will revisit this next month?
Yeah.
And is the only bone of contention just who will be allowed access? Is that it?
Yeah, some way that we maintain and monitor that.
But I like the idea of the majority of council. Idea. Because if a man starts stealing office supplies, I think, well,
there are a lot of budget cuts for future.
You think?
If John starts showing up to work, we'll pick on John now. But yeah, those are the issues.
Mike takes all the doggy bags to his house.
Already doggy bags for anymore. What?
You have a dog.
Yeah.
So you need doggy bags at your house. So if you steal them all, and get you on camera.
I use Ziploc freezer bags. Holds the smell.
Ew.
That's rather expensive.
It is. But it keeps the smell out of your
Hold
garbage
on, number 12.
can. She brought up the dog food.
All right, so we're coming back to item 11. So item 12, I accidentally already gave, so we'll skip that. Number 13, we didn't meet in July, so we'll skip that. And that brings us to council comments. Okay, yes, sir.
I'll go first. I only had a couple of notes. One, it concerns me that you spoke earlier in the meeting about talked about roundabout that is not necessarily going to happen now.
That's the way that reads, but I thought I saw an email that said it was under.
Well, I'd like to get some clarification on that because I think a lot of our residents specifically would like to know whether that's being worked on or not being worked on. Sounds like we dangled a carrot in front of a few people and then they go, oh, no, we're not actually doing that now. And that concerns the...
I have it in writing that
Well,
it's happening from DOT.
Right, and I think we need to clarify one way or the other if that is happening so that we haven't dangled a carrot in front of residents on Cuthbertson Road and then turn around and they go, well, what happened to it? Well, even though we don't have direct control of it, I think we need to be upfront and honest with the residents. Absolutely. And I think that was it for me.
Next.
I would just say that meeting we attended last week, was that just last week? 2 weeks. That last call about Cuthbertson Road and taking everything else. It was, it was good to get people together. It was really nice to hear someone from the fire department speak up about the safety concerns that they would have, and I think those things would have normally come up as one of those items we talk about. And it was a good conversation. I will just say that they had a video they were very proud of to show how bad traffic was, and I just sat there and said, "You people ain't seen nothing," because it was nothing compared to some of the things we saw here in those public hearings. And I think if they had shown some of those, people would have been even more flabbergasted. But it was a good day to get people together, even though, they, for some reason.
Do you think that the meeting's going to have any traction as far as moving forward?
I don't know.
I think Bill Ruley
Bill Ruley picked it up and said, hey, we need some action items and stuff. So That's just interest.
He's all over. He sent, like the next day, he was like, here are the action items, Ann Simpson. What are we?
But she was just like, thanks.
So it was nice. He got him in today. So, I hope in the fact that the county, will work on sidewalks on.
I mean, they're at least not looking for the library, early enough, so it's not a retrofit totally for everything. That was a positive. It was a good conversation. I will say one of the proposals was to put in crosswalks and then let the kids crosswalk over and go through the Courtyards neighborhood, which I thought was ironic considering it's a senior community without children would become the traffic zone for children.
Yeah, so they're going to have to take those back to HOAs to get HOAs to approve paths through their neighborhoods for high school and middle school children. And I don't
They're not
see
gonna-
that
They're not
happen.
going to let that happen.
Where would they go once they went through Courtyards
They
to
would be
where?
coming from Austin through Courtyard.
And it backs up to,
They're not going to let that happen.
Champion Forest. It backs up to.
I don't know. Being a teenager once myself, there didn't always have to be a marked path. If there was an attractive place to walk somewhere.
There's a route, it didn't have to be marked,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. We made our own. We don't need no roads.
But no, I thought it was overall a good meeting, and I'm glad we were able to participate. And it will be interesting to see if it comes out, particularly either a roundabout or a reclassification of that road, so that we can get some much needed improvement.
Along that route, was any discussion had? I know it's summertime and school is out about the issue with the kids turning in, making U-turns at Champion Forest.
Brandon said he'd nip that in the bud.
Well, it's summertime, so it's resolved. But the question is it going to be
So
is
we
it
just
going to
need
be
to
an issue
circle
in the
back to
spring?
them to go back and start school. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, there was school representation there too, so
I'll follow up for
I was, can I say something?
Sure.
I
You're
wasn't
next.
here, I wasn't here in July, so I apologize if I'm bringing up something that was discussed, but this email that we got from Cheryl talking about leash laws, is that something that we don't have a leash law? Is that something that we want to look into, or?
It was talked about a long time ago with another certain, you can speak too, but with another certain council member. Our problem is we have no way to enforce it because the county doesn't have one either. So that would be us creating a new rule that the deputies won't enforce for us either. But
Yeah, we had somebody in a single month. They said we need no burning policy, we need a no leash law, we need a no golf cart policy, we need a no. I mean, there was like a list of no solicitation, no golf carts, no burning, no. And it was like, well, wait a minute. I talked to the fire chief. He says we don't have a problem. I talked to the Humane Society. They said we don't have a problem. I talked with the. And we already had no solicitation policy that she had put in place 3 months earlier, and she wanted to do it all over again. It was just one of those things. It's like not needed, not needed, not needed. Not because I say so, because the sheriff's department and the chief of police and the fire chief and everybody who is in the know said no.
it would be different if we could enforce it. I think that's the stop.
But doesn't Price Mill have a leash policy? I mean, because
Unless it's in the bylaws.
but you can have that within your HOA.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Who's going to enforce it again?
I don't know if it's in there or not.
But I've never seen dogs just running around unless they're literally or something. I was just curious. It's like I said, I wasn't here in July, and I wanted to make sure that.
We did have one dog that ate another dog back a year ago.
Really?
It was
Oh,
not
in-
my dog.
in-
It was my
I
dog.
remember that.
It was my dog.
I remember that. Oh, what was it?
So, I mean, the problem is enforcement. It's like our noise ordinance. If we don't have any,
Actually, I did get an update from the county commissioner on that. He said he is working specifically with the county ordinance department about making changes to the noise ordinance and getting an approved, much needed improvement made to that and coming across county commissioner's desk before the end of the year.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So it'll be enforceable by the sheriff's department.
We will write a resolution in support of that. North is a big part of our church. Do you know your next?
Sure. I'm going to be a cheerleader. Okay. And which the quote of the night, George, a good cheerleader is not judged by the height of her, his or her jumps, or the span of his or her spirit. So, in the spirit of that, I'd like to say that the council, planning board, George, Bridget, all of us have done a heck of a good job on this comp plan, and I applaud all of us for getting through this. Whenever Long first brought this up, I think I'm still sitting on the planning board, and I thought to myself, man, this is huge. And to consider that we got through this, approved it, put it into place in less than a year, well, I guess right at a year's time, is incredible, and that's good. So, good job for all of us. Good team, that's right. The two things that I personally would like to see us address moving into that, we talk about action steps. Seeing that we've got the county wanting us to support their economic development process, or what they claim that to be. I feel like we need to do the same thing. There's a lot. Now since the food line has opened up, the talk that I hear is roads, plus an empty shopping center. I would like for us to consider, and early on we had talked about having not teams but interest groups, I think, to target certain areas. I would like for us to put something together that we can continue to drive completion of the shopping center. I don't know how we'll do that, but I would like to see that. Going back to being a good cheerleader. So far we have heard positive things from a developer that has a vested interest in the village about our comp plan. They were in favor of it, and then they looked at it and said, wow, We've also heard from the fire chief, who has continued to look at that and has so far expressed good things. So, good things come out of that. And then secondly, economic development person. Secondly, I think we probably owe it to our residents to update them. As we talked about, the roundabout and Newtown and everything else. I think we owe it to the village residents to keep them as up to date as possible. Loriano's CRTPO probably is not giving us any information or anything tangible within Wesley Chapel that we can share.
Yeah, that's not the purpose of that organization. It's just not that granular. It's a twice a year funding thing, and there's not project updates.
Well, then, is there any way that we can be more proactive in sharing that information to the village? Or for that matter, for us as council to be able to have answers. Hey, when's this going to be paid? Somebody asked me, I don't know.
Harris Teeter's manager asked me that just today. He said, what's the update on the road expansion? What's going on behind 201 Central? They're all interested, business owners alike. They all want to know what's going on.
You can see the latest out there on the Orange map where you can see what everything is. I think it's like 20, 45 or something.
Yeah, how many times can you push it back?
CRPTO is asking for some input. I sent it to Deb, and I probably didn't email it to you, but we can share it on the village Facebook page and ask for resident participation.
In recent years, the number of changes to road projects has been so frequent in terms of funding. Especially in the last couple of years, it has been so frequent. And then something else happened with the legislature moving a bunch of sales tax money into NCDOT's budget, which has necessitated a further reevaluation of the timing of some projects to the good side, which has necessitated, there were some swaps going on with projects that they're saying, well, hold off on doing those. And there are people that keep up with that stuff pretty well. I'm not one of them, unfortunately. It's such a moving target these days.
But if they're putting money in the system, why do the projects keep being pushed out further?
Well, because it's for certain projects. And yeah.
One big issue is right of way, and procuring right of way is difficult and just gets more and more expensive every year. And that becomes a big obstacle for some of those projects. And then the prices.
The inflationary environment, changes in budget have played havoc because probably well-meaning at one point in time, finance professionals at NCDOT and engineers estimated the cost of all these projects, and they're 200, 300, 400% more expensive now, and then they go up every day, and so they don't know how much money they have really, and they don't know what they can get done really. And North Carolina has the second largest state highway system in the country after Texas. So that gives you an idea of the scale of what they're dealing with. Is everything from your subdivision streets to interstate highways, and they don't, if it's not funded next year, they don't know if it's funded or not really. I mean, that's the reality of the situation now.
We are where we are because it's been everything, many things in the state of North Carolina have been severely underfunded for many years and postponed. And then when things get to that critical point where something has to be done, the cost is much more astronomical than things been done long earlier.
Well, and I don't want to get into a long conversation about NCDOT.
Sure.
But the only thing that I guess my comments are, the more open we can be with that information, I think the better representatives we are.
David, let me ask this question. How many times do I tell you something's going to happen, and then I have to come back to you and say, well, I know I told you it was going to be done, but now we're not going to do it. Well, then we're definitely going to do it. Well, now we're going to push it back again. Now, how many times can I lie to you before you just say, you know what, don't tell me anything?
I think, so NCDOT actually, they do I think, decent job of sharing, putting out press releases about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And
well, but they're all lies.
But that's coming from
but it's not coming from the village.
That's right.
It's coming, sharing when it's not you because you're not building the road, you're not building the roundabout, you are sometimes influencing what's done or what the priority is, but when you shouldn't take responsibility for what other people are saying. I mean, you're passing along the best information you have at the moment, but the couching that in the terms of here's a press release from NCDOT or some information we received from the Regional Transportation Planning Organization or our district engineer about these projects, and here I'm sharing that this is something I learned and I'm sharing it with you. Then when somebody, David said that we were going to get this project done next year, and he said, well, no, I was sharing something that NCDOT shared with me. So if you have a problem, you call your state legislator. You can complain to them.
My boss, as an elected official, I get stopped at the grocery store all the time. People that are like, hey, I've been to the area, I found out you were the town councilman, blah, blah, blah. And they start telling me, oh, we got a problem with the school, we got a problem. I said, that's the Board of Education. Well, we got a problem with the road. I said, that's the Department of Transportation. Oh, we got a problem. That's the Sheriff's Department. That's the fire department. They think we're in charge of everything.
Right.
And we're supposed to have all these answers.
Right.
And the DOT tells us stuff. We regurgitate it, and it ends up being wrong. Right. So if we keep regurgitating the wrong thing over and over and over, we should just stop saying anything and pointing the finger at the DOT and not being part of the loop.
Mike, that's not being a very good cheerleader.
But it does take the focus off of us because we're not the one they should be focused on.
Sure.
So for my council comments, I was hoping that the communications committee would come up with a social media plan where regular updates would be sent to residents about things. That committee is struggling. I am presenting to the Waxhaw Weddington Rotary soon. Not this week, but next week. And then I need to update my presentation. And then I am invited randomly to a meeting with the National Weather Service about the emergency operations. So I can go.
I was invited to that too.
All about weather.
So
I think it's about like emergency,
Responses and stuff.
like if a hurricane or a tornado or whatever.
So
Yeah,
that's
that kind of emergency.
Another thing that I wanted that we've heard women talk about for a while, and I think I'm tired of waiting for the communications committee, So I might go ahead and set up date and time and have a calendar for us to go ahead and start some sort of coffee with council, coffee with the mayor, and have it be me and one of you every month.
Yeah,
Not
you
doing
and I could
it
get together and do that. If you
And
want.
do it here at night. And
Are the other towns doing it monthly or quarterly?
I think Marvin is doing it monthly. I don't know about the rest of them.
They weren't really sure what you'd want to do, so they were talking
I want to
quarterly.
sit here, nobody's going to come talk to me, and then I'll go home.
We've done it before and nobody would show up,
Yeah.
basically.
Are any of our local businesses open to hosting you?
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you want to talk to people, you're gonna probably need to go to them. But that's
smart. Yeah. So Deb and I'll get together and work on something, just music.
Too bad we still don't have 201 Central.
No.
Oh, and Buzz's Brews, which is apparently.
well, that's yeah.
Who?
I've been. Buzz's,
The Buzz.
Buzz's where Ralph's was. It's supposed to be fantastic.
Buzzes.
I think it's called The Buzz.
It's something about those, yeah.
Where is it?
It's in the shopping center, the
Side box floor.
You know, like where Pizza Hut is at the end there.
People say it's great.
Every time I'm there, it must make look. But I have not stopped to there.
I think it's like beer and wine
My
or
comment is
something.
I would steer clear of the weather thing. It sounds very similar to what we did probably about 6 years ago. They got all the local municipalities to send their council members to a thing, and they were talking about, they had the fire department, they had the police department, they had the ambulance department, or the fire and rescue guys, and they were telling us all about all the different things, and at the end of it, I'm like, what? Why? Because, David, if you have a heart attack, you don't, they go, say, quick, let's call a politician. If your house is on fire, you don't say, let's call the mayor. If someone's breaking into your house, you don't say, hey, let's call Mike. You know,
I'll tell you why.
it was a dog and pony show.
Now, I'll tell you why, because I used to attend these all the time, because I work with emergency management as a reporter. Because if a tornado hits Wesley Chapel, we're going to all be involved in what goes on and what...
After the event.
Well, you don't want to wait till after the event to try to get your head together. You want to get the process at the beginning.
I understand that, but nobody calls us first. We're not the first person to pick up the phone and say, I'm having a heart attack, my house is on fire, someone's breaking into my house.
No.
Nobody calls the politician.
But
They
that's not
blame
the-
the politician after the fact.
They're
if
talking
there's not
weather
enough.
stuff.
Yeah.
They're talking weather
They're
stuff.
talking natural disaster.
Natural disaster.
And again, if there's natural disaster, I'm not the first person to ever call.
No, but the village, to that point, would be involved in proactive things, because that's one of the things that elected politicians in some areas that have been devastated, because they did nothing.
I mean, who are they going to call? Who are they going to call? If something happens and town hall is destroyed, or Harris Teeter gets a tornado through it, the mayor is going to speak. The mayor is the one that's going to represent the town and say, this is what's going on, and blah, blah, blah.
No, after the fact, absolutely.
Well, you can't just come up and pull something out of your behind. I mean, you got to have a little bit of planning.
I'm going to go because it says they're going to talk about historical weather events, understanding forecasting, and technology use. It says they're going to share their new technology and capabilities in support of the town. So I went to a lot of EOC meetings when during COVID, every day, 3 months. So,
Is this an in-person meeting or?
yeah, it's in person. We can ask if they don't mind. Do you have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Get my damage going.